Who could have known that a neighborhood so quiet and peaceful could be home to such a horrific murder? Dasmariñas is a lively
Coffee House Crime e ăsta. Yeah, detective stuff. I really like this guy.
growing community nestled just
Coffee House Crime, îi zice.
south of Manila.
Da, e foarte informativ și așa. Sunt și cu interviuri care îmi plac de astea care sunt cu explicația mai mult, știi, și zic ce cazuri s-au întâmplat și pe mine cel mai mult îmi place când cum îi prinde, știi? Detectivii ăștia super șmecheri, mai ales americani, bine, au a lot of practice.
In the Philippines. It's the kind of place where neighborhoods are incredibly close-knit, where children play in narrow streets, and the smell of home-cooked meals drifts through open windows. Dasmariñas is known for its blend of rural charm and urban sprawl, a city in transition where traditional markets sit beside modern malls, and new housing developments are slowly replacing rice fields. However, beneath its warm family values, Dasmariñas, much like any other place, has its shadows. And in today's case, we won't be looking at a distant, dangerous city or dark alleyway, but instead, we'll be stepping inside a modest family home in a seemingly safe neighborhood. A home where secrets were quite literally buried. And this is where the story of Evelyn Sayos begins. Welcome back to Coffee House Crime, folks. My name is Adrian, and today we're looking at two cases out of Southeast Asia, both of which you've probably never heard of before. We'll first be looking at the case of Evelyn Sayos, which happened over in the Philippines over a period of around 4 years. Now this one is a story of a mother's love portrayed in the most horrific of ways, a cover-up which lasted almost half a decade, and left everyone wondering, why? Honestly, this is the sort of story that will leave you haunted. Alright, let's jump straight into this one today, folks. Before we begin, please do subscribe if you like true crime, strange or chilling stories. Now, with that said, please, grab yourself a coffee, and let's caffeinate while we investigate.
What?
Refocusing on the city of Dasmariñas, Evelyn was a 54-year-old woman who had spent most of her life here. Through tragedy, she, unfortunately, was a widowed single mother of 2 children named Joanna and John, and had been raising them on her own ever since her husband passed away when both of them were still very young. But despite her loss, Evelyn kept going. Her friends saw her as kind, strict, deeply loving, and always worked very hard to support her kids. Moving through their teenage years, it was quite evident that she'd put them through good schools, made sure that they had food on the table, and always provided them with a home. Of course, there were many inevitable Now, despite the fact that she was rich, she didn't have a support from Helen's husband. In a single life, and a place that she would occasionally visit. People who knew her described her as resilient and the type of mother who would never give up. Now, you'd say that she was likely damaged in the way. Of course, the death of her husband would have caused immeasurable pain, and she likely felt all that advantage. And unfortunately, this would cause problems for all 3 of them, especially with her daughter Joanna. You see, while John was more mature and reserved, Joanna was slightly rebellious to his Joanna was the kind of person who would party off, drink heavily, and stick around. In fact, by the age of 16, she was pregnant with a 13-year-old baby, and this left her mother deeply embarrassed. You see, she believed that her daughter deserved so much more. However, despite her concerns, both Ronald and Joanna and when the baby was finally born, Joanna and Ronald did not traditional beliefs, absolutely furious. There were clearly problems in the household, but Evelyn decided that she would still continue to support her daughter no matter what. In response, she would help raise the child, buy formula and everything else required, and even pay the bills. But there is no denying that the emotional strain between the two was actually growing and becoming unforgiving. Joanna was still quite the immature and reckless kid, even after the birth. And whenever Evelyn stepped in to try to help her, well, she wasn't having any of it, and this would often lead into huge arguments between the two. Now, Evelyn, she still loved her daughter to immeasurable lengths, and there was no question about that. However, what she didn't know is that things were slowly starting to unravel beneath her feet. Darkness was growing inside her home, and soon enough, she would vanish without a trace. August the 20th, 20. What began as a regular night eventually brought some strange and unfamiliar news to Emily's circle. After one of her friends had reached out to ask her to coffee, Joanna responded formally by practicing for 2 relax. As the day progressed, this news was spread amongst the rest of the family and friends, and although it was not unexpected, nobody expected it at first. Although money was tight, everyone was happy. I mean, she owned a house already, and had even told her of course, the main reason behind this was that this was their home and her daughter. It wasn't just a feeling about the relationship and everyone. And also looking after her. You see, in order to save money, Joanna still was and really rather reckless. She would sometimes leave the property in the evenings, which in turn would leave her baby with her mother. It is no surprise that Evelyn felt quite hard done by with this. She had just spent the last 20 years raising her children as a single mother, and now, when it was finally time for her to have her own life, well, it kind of felt like her daughter was just making her repeat the entire cycle all over again. And so, who was anyone to judge Evelyn for needing some time away to find herself again? But as the days turned into weeks, something began to feel off. And when 1 month became 2, her friends concluded that this was wildly out of character. Even stranger, although Evelyn was active on Facebook and occasionally posted updates on her timeline, she seemed to refuse all other forms of communication. There were no phone calls, no video chats, which is odd because seemed to be extremely sick and whenever her family members tried to call her, she would only reply to text messages. As the weeks slowly turned into months, a lot of people were suspicious. Even when she was unsuspicious, once they asked her to come, she would always say she was in town or just sick. Unfortunately, these questions would remain unanswered very This experience was the most painful for her son John, who had no idea what was going on with his mother. But in the year 2018, he had finally had enough, and after moving to another city for work, he decided that he could no longer ignore the feeling in his gut, and that is when he But unfortunately, the police struck him out. They pointed out that not only was her face but that her passport and all her clothes were and so maybe everyone after all. Of course, this might have been the case for people but John, who knew that something was wrong, he would have to sit in With June marking the beginning of the rainy season in the Philippines, John returned to the family home to begin some new renovations. You see, over time, the house had fallen into disrepair and now needed some refurbishment to keep his sister and niece dry. Still living there with her child, John thought it was finally time to freshen things up, especially the kitchen, which seemed to have not been touched for years. And so, with that in mind, he hired a construction crew to renovate the area, hoping that his mother would be happy to see her newly finished kitchen whenever she decided to come back from Singapore. So, the construction began as planned, but then all of a sudden, something happened. What would ultimately begin as a rather minor inconvenience convenience would soon turn into the most morbid of problems. It was shortly after construction started taking place that crew members reported a foul smell coming from the kitchen. Now, at first it was quite faint and smelled like rotting food or sewage. Many believed that it could possibly be the septic tank which is found underneath the kitchen floor. Nothing unusual, and that is when they started digging. As they slowly started to make their way down towards the septic tank, they found something rather ominous. It was shortly after breaking through the first layer of concrete that they found Evelyn's passport and ID. Now, John was stunned by the discovery. Why was his mother's documents found underneath the kitchen floor? And if this included her passport, then how did she fly to Singapore? As a result, he rushed to the police station and then demanded an investigation. And what they found was quite terrifying. Evelyn had never left the country, not in 2016, and not any year after. So, what did this mean, and where would they find her? Investigators arrived at the home the following morning, and by now, the smell had definitely worsened. The morbid thing on everyone's mind was what they may find beneath. Of course, it is true that, even in death, a human wants you to know exactly where they are. Detectives began to break through the floor, where they would then find a layer of cracked cement, with the smell growing even worse from those cracks. When they finally got beneath the cement, they caught sight of the
Asta e ca
property's
și
septic
sanitarul din
and
World of
after
Warcraft.
breaking into that tank, they found a body, curled up, decomposed and unrecognizable. It was in that
Rata
moment
los
that
Ruby.
John realized that the remaining parts of his family, including his sister's baby, had all been living above a corpse for all these years. And although forensic analysis was required to determine who the body belonged to, everyone knew precisely who it would be. And soon enough, DNA testing confirmed what John had feared all along. It was his mother, Evelyn. The autopsy was quite grisly. It appeared that Evelyn had suffered multiple skull fractures, which were all determined to be likely caused from a hammer. She had also been stabbed twice in the neck,
Oh
5
my God,
times in the
săraca.
chest, and had a very deep gash across her right arm. It was due to this brutality that the forensic team concluded that it looked like a crime of passion and hatred, a killing filled with rage. But who would want to murder Evelyn? And why with so much anger and violence? With Evelyn being found beneath the kitchen floor, suspicion immediately turned to all of
Prinde
those
ceva.
living inside the property at
Oh
the
my God,
time.
Nianco.
That, of course, being Joanna and her boyfriend, Ronald.
Fishing.
But of course, these allegations were extremely heavy. I mean, how could a daughter decide to murder her mother like that? And what about all the active Facebook posts coming from Evelyn's profile? Well, as the investigators began to look deeper into this case, they would realize there was a huge backstory and a rather elaborate cover-up. When initially questioned, both of them denied having anything to do with Evelyn's death. However, this
Do you
was a
have- do
story
you
that
even
they
have
could
bait
not
on it?
hold on to for long. Unsurprisingly, the police pushed hard for a confession because, quite simply, there was no way that Joanna would not know where her mother was, and she had no idea what to say in replacement. Eventually, she cracked right in front of the officers, a full-fledged confession behind waves of tears and apologies. And for the next hour, detectives would
Monsters
learn
are
and
living,
hear about
Janko.
Joanna's most evil moments. As the months of heated arguments and troubling threats turned into years, the relationship between Evelyn and Joanna had started to sour. It is
Janko.
obvious that Evelyn had always loved her daughter,
Ah!
and that she would never waver on that.
Good
But
job.
it's also clear that she was growing increasingly frustrated with Joanna's behavior. Not only had she turned into the rebellious
let's go.
teenager that she became, but her thoughtless actions would end in her becoming pregnant too. And to compound to this problem, her marriageless birth seemed to oppose Evelyn's more traditional beliefs. From that point onwards, a passive war would take place within the family home. Evelyn was nurturing, caring, and thoughtful, but she was stubbornly traditional too. While, on the other hand, Joanna was thoughtless, selfish, and had no idea what she was doing. Although the two lived together, they were constantly bickering, and while Evelyn could handle this emotional strain, the more selfish and stupid of the two couldn't. And so, it was in that moment of desperation and anger that Joanna and Ronald began to hatch a plan. It was on August the 20th, 2016, that Joanna told her mother that she had a surprise for her in the basement. And Evelyn, being kind, trusting and hopeful, followed her daughter downstairs. However, lurking in the shadows was Ronald, waiting for what would be Evelyn's final moments. After making her way downstairs, Evelyn was
Oh, yeah,
then
bro.
struck from behind multiple
Bro.
times with a hammer. She collapsed in response, but
Fuck.
As if she was still there, but she would even write fake birthday messages to herself merely to keep up her illusion. And to make matters even worse, Joanna acted like a picture-perfect version of herself, posting morning prayers and gratitude messages, all while her own mother was rotting in her feet. That happened as she told Joanna anyone on the chest. Now, understandably, this is a short relation with the right order. Not afraid to hold her traditional values, but she would ultimately lose her life at the hands of someone
Trebuie mai mult spațiu pentru să-mi bat, că e acolo nu sta în loc.
Pride and love that was ultimately taken for granted.
Da, e
It
jos.
reminds us that evil does not always wear a mask. Sometimes it lives right in
Prind
the
singur pe
house.
căcatul ăla.
It borrows your phone, eats your food, smiles at the neighbors, and then hides a body under the floor. The nature of this case is so horrifying when you think about it, and I have no idea how either of them could have lived there, knowing that there is a body right beneath their feet. What is even worse is that baby will now grow up without a mother, father, or grandmother. I often think about this in my stories, but there really are no winners here, only losers. We're now leaving the Philippines to travel to Thailand for our next case, to look at a horrible story that happened in 2021. It's safe to say that 2021 was a very unusual year for all of us, with thanks to a certain pandemic. We all lost touch of our day-to-day lives, and had to follow some rather strange processes. This was very much the case for a woman who was supposed to recognize who at the time was and what was really next was...
Oh my god, mai luat remote.
That said, let me start from the beginning. This is the something
What the fuck?
Southeast Asia, lies around the Golden Triangles, ancient legends, imagine a place where saffron-robed monks walk quietly through the streets of the world, where the sun is street food floats around them, and the jungle covered mountains meets the sugar-white beaches. Thailand is not it's an experience, a colourful piece of vision, adventure, and a place that I am proud to visit. For those of you who have recognized this, you'll know how important traditional setting. Although it's a predominantly Buddhist country, where it's a safe place to be, Thailand's economy is substantially dependent on tourism, and it's relatively growing. So, while it's unlikely that there is a trouble just to learn to shut it easily, Thailand's deeply rooted in the
am reload.
Promotions within the police force are frequently tied to money or connections rather than merit. And as for the wealthy or influential, well, it is reported that they can quite literally get away with murder. From roadside shakedowns targeting tourists to the mishandling of high-profile cases, public trust in the system remains at an all-time low. And despite periodic crackdowns and reforms, corruption remains a persistent shadow over the country, and change, we believe, is not overdue. Today, we're traveling to the western coast of Phuket, where turquoise waters lapping against golden shores are merely just a part of experience. Phuket is one of the world's most imagine tugboats that go past beach bums, waterfalls, temples, and sunsets that set the sky ablaze. That is the sort of environment that Phuket is known for, because it parties, corruption, and even violence.
Dracu dau reload ăsta.
It was on July 3rd, 2021, that a Swiss woman named Nicole Sylvain-Geiskog was exploring the Wichita Coast. At 11:33 a.m., a surveillance camera captured her walking alone near the beach. It is not seen here that news reports it was Avion's main beach close to Hampton Road. Here is the surveillance camera that captured the and this is the Nicole
No, mă, shield, pula mea, nu mai ține acolo, doamne.
What precisely occurred while she was the silence was I've said this before in previous videos, but Thailand is massively depends on tourism. In fact, in 2019 alone, Bangkok was officially ranked to be the most visited city globally, with a staggering 22.8 million visitors. If anyone said further, Phuket was ranked 40th with a total of 9 million visitors each year, which is nearly astronomically this problem, the country introduced a new scheme many arrivals needed to be found, but the caveat was that they could travel to the mainland within 14 days. It is unclear if the cult was hired for one but what we do know is that she was part of this program and landed. Those who interacted with it described it as calm and calm, and despite the world except almost 3 weeks after arrival, Nicole suddenly decided that something was up as soon as she knew that this situation was really was that something was wrong. And even later, the hotel would soon confirm that not only was in her room, but she had been not only that, she turned off her mobile phone and completely
But with everything else left behind, her suitcase, clothes and toiletries, it did appear that Nicole had plans to return to the hotel at some stage. So, with that in mind, where was she?
That is when officers investigating the disappearance found this surveillance footage, confirming that Nicole was last seen alive and well at 11:33 a.m. that morning. She seems to be travelling along Aoyon Kalka Road towards Aoyon Waterfall or Kalkat Viewpoint. However, after walking past the surveillance camera, Nicole suddenly disappeared. And that is not the only thing detectives would find, because after reviewing other surveillance cameras in the area, they found an image of this man driving around the forest. Officials were not sure who he was or what he was doing, but given the time that he was seen, they were curious to see him. As the hours had come to an end, nobody had seen or heard from him.
Anal blender.
But sadly, despite their best intentions, no sign of her was ever found. As they approached the 1 week mark, the enthusiasm to find her began to fade. But then, all of a sudden, on Thursday the 8th of July, 2021, 5 days after her disappearance, nothing was found. It was on this morning that an island resident walking through the forest came across a horrific discovery. There, lying in the water and among the rocks, she found a partially clad body lying face down.
Taking a closer look, the resident noticed that the body was of another female. Not only that, but she appeared to be mostly naked and half covered by a black plastic sheet. With that in mind, she wasted no further
Didn't
time
forget about the
and
other one,
reported
don't worry.
immediately. Officers arrived at the scene
With,
only a few minutes later, where they secured it to make sure that nobody tampered with the evidence. And sadly, they would also confirm that the body did in fact look like Nicole. Several items of clothing found at the crime scene would match that seen in surveillance footage. And talking about clothes, they would also find one of her trainers hanging in a tree nearby. Forensics soon determined that, judging by the colour and bloating of the body, this person had likely died around 3 days prior. Not only that, but they could tell quite visibly that she had not died of natural causes. And to add to these haunting details, another autopsy report would soon confirm that she had likely died from drowning.
This was a massive blow for Nicole's family and friends, and the residents were ashamed to hear that something so barbaric had happened in their own backyard. Murder does tend to be rare here.
Never know, you never know who you talk to. Fuck pula,
As you can imagine,
e
this would be
fucking...
sure to affect Thailand's holiday industry, which always sees a
Da, și eu
notable drop
vorbesc
in
cu foarte mulți
tourism
oameni pe
and
săptămână,
events
știi? Și
around.
nu-ți dai seama cu cine vorbești, mă
And
trezesc
so,
un pic
in
în gât.
response, the Prime Minister
Da,
urged all
vine unul
agencies
care
to
a avut o zi
expedite
ca
their
pula
investigation and find the person
și îmi fute 12
responsible.
cuțite că
Now, the
mi-a lăsat
authorities
5.000
did
de euro la
have
mașină,
logic,
știi?
but what they
Așa
didn't
din
have
serin,
was a
că ăștia
motive
schizofrenici
or a
dintr-o dată.
suspect. And with that said, many people began to wonder if maybe this could happen again. But thankfully, the officers were very quick to
That's
arrest the
screeching.
suspect. In fact, they
Oh,
had
yeah,
the
woke
on
now,
one of
correct.
them all along.
So,
Se taie pe ei,
do
n-au
you
curăț.
remember the man seen on the
Da, miroasea luată în freza azi. Hai de pula mea, da, că ăsta e maxim.
Officers noticed that this man had driven to the scene shortly before
Cum pula mea, mă, că am ținut pe shield, prost.
detectives soon learned that the man in question went by the name of
Bă, nu pot să dezbloc astea, what the fuck.
Now, finding him was actually quite easy. They had his face, the model, or a
Dai, să mă heal, dai.
Eventually,
Că
they
poate
found
acolo.
his address through his license plates. When they knocked on his front door to question him, well, they immediately noticed several cuts and bruises. No surprise, this was incredibly suspicious. For a man,
Lasă că te-am prins acum. Ce învață tata, cine șef?
down to the station.
Toată asta fătută trebuie să dăm jos.
What Photo, also known as Marie, was 28 formerly a technician in the area, he would then move on and declare himself in front of the local woods. On July 2021, San Marie visited the
Mamă, de unde mai e asta? Retroactiv.
It was while he was walking down
Hai de acolo, mânca mai pula. Oriunde dă ea, oe, frate.
Valerie was rather quick to admit that the sight of the pole significantly turned him off.
Handicapatule, hai de acolo.
He thought of hesitation, he decided to accept her. That is when he signed the contract before then placing her in the
What the fuck?
With Nicole, she was not ready to go down without a fight, leading to the two.
Roata, boss, hai pe aici.
As a result,
Pe aici, așa.
Valerie was covered in bruises and cuts, but unfortunately, these two was not well. The scenes included holding at the back of Nicole's head.
Doamne ajută.
Submerged her underwater. Before gleaming minutes, Valerie watched her life.
Crezut că pleci.
Right to the edge of the water. After taking a
Să te Dumnezeu. Bă, deci o căcata asta de schemă, man. Strigă ca un handicapat.
Later that day, he spent $1 he robbed from Nicole on orange juice and drugs, before then crashing at home as if nothing. However, the master was arrested on charge of murder, attempted sexual assault, and indecent assault. No surprise, his confession sent shockwaves through the community. The idea that someone could take a life for a twisted impulse and less than $10 was almost too gruesome to believe. This is typically the case for most murders that happen in Thailand. The suspect is
Oh, băi, sunt mai bine. Dă-i călțin!
It was only after his confession
Dă-i călțin!
he claimed that he only meant to rob Nicole and not kill her. But when asked why her clothes had been removed, he couldn't offer an answer. Just the court wasn't buying it, and
Numai aici te bazi, man.
but the judge then handed down the sentence. However, in a surprising turn, that sentence was later changed. As for Nicole's family, the Minister of Tourism and compensation of which is the tourism minister put tighter security under the island.
Da, uite. Nu înțeleg geometria la chestia asta. Facem cururi de la taluri.
And also not only that, permanent closure was on the table for those sites that
Trage.
were unpopular or too isolated. In short, this was a very aggressive way for the government to try to increase safety on the island. On August the 6th, 2021, the vigil was held for Nicole on one of the nearby beaches. A framed
Ce e aici? Grevă? Hai, cărați-vă! Mâncai arbă cu voi. Treabă cu taică-tu. Lasă-mă, Bonchi, ajută-mă! A doua, mă, odată, a doua, tu-s morții, mătii.
Greed of humanity is inevitable, and like any of the other deadly sins, it has devastating consequences for men. In March 2008, in this town in North Carolina, we see the acted on in a very cruel manner, thus creating a tragedy which left an emotional scar on thousands of people. But what precisely happened to Eve Carson? How did she end up falling victim? And what evidence was left behind to catch her killers? Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, folks, and welcome back to Coffee House Crime. My name is Adrian, and today we're looking at the heartbreaking case of Eve Carson. Now, this story really is a case of wrong place, wrong time. And with the victim so popular, the killers accidentally left a massive hole in the community. By the way, just like a barista loves a tip, I really do appreciate people subscribing to my channel.
No idea what the fuck I'm
So if
doing
you would like to hear
and so
true
much
crime
damage.
weekly,
Holy shit.
then please consider doing so. Just a spoiler alert, but this
Vreau
man
să
is
facă la...
struggling with COVID
arată
for
ca
the first time
sanitarul
now, so
din World of
apologies
Warcraft.
for the performance today. Yep.
I'm a fucking nerd, aia. Super nerd. In a very bad way.
Now with that said, please grab yourself a coffee, pull up a seat and get ready for the deep dive. This is the case of Eve Carson.
Hai da, unde ești? Oh, stai că doarme și ăsta. Tot se culcă. Unde să te lovesc? Hai că te lovesc
Today
aici.
we're returning to the US and to one of its eastern coastline states. It's home to the Wright brothers, Krispy Kreme, and smoking relatives.
Măcar am dat reload.
To keep things relatively short and sweet, the Tarkin state has many good things.
He's sleeping with his dead brother. Oh my god, I'm gonna cry. I deserve that, I deserve that.
Industry is pulling it in a more positive financial direction. STEM industries are
Under player de vină.
thanks to its pleasant new climate, and many make money over here. But unfortunately, this is only in its cities and important areas. The wealth divide between people in the country has escalated in recent years, and this state is a primary example of the ever-growing Great Transmission effect. Drive into the state's capital, Raleigh, and you'll see plenty of development going on here. Its core industries include financial services, medical and
Da, tu câte scheme din astea ai văzut?
a major player in biotech and similar high-tech research. This is due to its continuous investment in medical research and educational facilities, with Wake Med, UNC Rex Healthcare, and the University of North Carolina all being significant. Drive out to the west of Raleigh's borders and south of its territory, and you'll come across a town with a population of 62,000 residents. It primarily serves as home to the campus of the University of North Carolina. Now, this town is 13 to 12 years. And why, you may ask? Well, that's because it's home to the main housing story. As you would expect from most university towns, living in Chapel Hill offers residents an ambience of urban atmosphere. Most of the people here tend to rent their homes, and with so many restaurants, shops and parks, it is no wonder why this place is so absolutely Chapel Hill has several great places to grab a coffee, or so I've been told. And with so many parks and creeks around, it offers fantastic walking trails in the springtime. To be honest with you, I think I love this being a student here. The rent is cheap.
Oh my fucking god, ce fain
and
e.
there's plenty of things to
Nu
do
mi-e scred,
here.
nu mi-e
Satisfaction
scred
rates
de-
for those who actually attend university
gândit
are
atât de
impressively
combinatul
high
ăsta.
here too. And as for the crime rates, it's below national average. Those who aren't employed by the university are used to the students and their parties, and otherwise they enjoy a very peaceful and safe community, which is probably why, on March 5th, 2008, everyone was shocked to hear the news. It was around 5 a.m. that morning that a resident in the area of Hillcrest Circle, which is located northeast of Chapel Hill and UNC, was awoken to a terrifying situation. After hearing a single gunshot, a woman's scream rang out from beyond the tree line, and following this already chilling sound were 3 more gunshots in rapid succession.
Orange County 911, this is Rob.
Hi, I think I just heard gunshots outside.
Okay. How many shots did you hear?
Over.
You heard 4?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Did you see anyone by chance?
No, I mean, I was laying awake in bed.
Dar să nu-ți dai cu paharul în gură când aterizezi. Pare pizda.
You want to put your long friend? Orange County 911, this is
Mamă, ce unghiuri are asta, what the fuck. E, pe omul ăsta s-o pus. Dracu, jos de acolo. Știi, gura mătii.
Too scared to investigate, the residents called 911, and officers responding to the call were met with a stomach churn. A body was found lying in the intersection of Hillcrest Road and Hillcrest Circle. The victim was a young woman in her early 20s. No identifying information was found at the scene, meaning it was possible that the murder could be linked to a robbery. Whoever had shot this woman clearly had no regard for human life. She'd been shot several times with a handgun. At a height of 5'5" and 138 pounds, or 166 and 62 kilograms, the young woman was fairly easy to assess, and based on her age, it was likely that she was a student. And sadly, these assumptions would turn out to be factual. Once the news broke out across Chapel Hill, word spread around the town like wildfire, and after realizing that their housemate had returned home overnight, several students contacted the police for potential reassurance. Now, unfortunately, that reassurance never arrived, and after a visual examination of the home, they were able to confirm that it belonged to their housemates. The student at the University of North Carolina, Eve Carson, was well-loved, well-known, and very successful at St. Louis. She served as student for the conference, and despite this, was a recipient of the Mid-Atlantic Scholarship. Beginning with her backstory, Eve was born on November 19, 1985, in Texas, Georgia. Her mother, Teresa, and father, Bob Carson, were loving parents who found the solid start to their childhood, and alongside her brother, Andrew, who remained Matthew's throughout her junior years. Now, this is an overstatement, but he was one of the most exemplary students in the school in Pentecost. And not only was she a strong student, but she was very popular with friends too. While attending Park Central High School, he was elected to become student body president after receiving 55% of all total votes. Not only that, but she was also her year's valedictorian, a title reserved to the highest performing student of the year. Intelligence aside, she was well loved by her friends and teachers. And winning the student competition is probably enough to prove her popularity like crazy. Now they say that pictures speak thousands of words, so instead of this, randomly, here's an article video of Eve welcoming students back to the UNC.
Hey y'all,
Ăla cred că a fost combo complet. Nu ești doar.
can't wait to see you again.
Că nu știu cum o fac gen.
Welcome to the Carolina campus. So this is the student government office, 2501 in the new student union, and as your representation, this office is your friend. We've got computers you can use, communication, there's another thing on the other side, and we've got a lot of people who this is Lawrence, Marshall. There are three branches of student, executive, legislative, and judicial. And so executive branch and key branch, the student councils are located in this office. And the judicial branch, which is the honor court, is located down in SASB. I really want to encourage all of you guys to take advantage of the incredible opportunities that are here. From campus-wide to Millennium Village Project to student television to the Daily Target to student government, there are so many incredible ways that you can get involved. And I've really found that my experience has been enriched by ways that we give back to our communities and to our campus. Also, I personally invite you to come hang out with me. I spend a lot of time in this office and I love saying hi and meeting new people. So
Yeah, sure.
if I can help you or if I can help you figure out how you want to get involved on campus,
Poor girl.
please come by and let's talk.
Murdered by some idiot, oh my god. So stupid. Die young,
But
what
Eve
the fuck.
Carson's service extended well beyond her curricular studies. As part of the Morehead Summer Enrichment Program, she volunteered to
Bă,
work during her summer
vreau
holidays.
să-mi
in
fac armă. I need
Ecuador.
weapon, bro. You have to die because I need
While
weapon.
there, she worked as a medical assistant in the countryside, volunteered to work and taught some local space. As you can likely imagine, Eve was more than capable of getting into the likes of Princeton and Yale. In fact, she was even offered scholarships for both of them, which honestly is an insanely talented achievement. However, in true Eve fashion, she made the decision to attend public school instead. This decision led her to North Carolina in the autumn of 2004. And under the prestigious Moorhead Scholarship, she attended UNC to study pre-medicine, majoring in both political
Uite
science and
carcase.
biology. During college, Eve led numerous organizations and service projects, leading her to eventually being selected to be a North Carolina Fellow and take part in a 4-year leadership program. In addition to all of this, she tutored students at Frank Porter Graham Elementary School and Giffens Middle School. She also worked with Girls on the Run, which is a program that helps build confidence and empowerment in young women. In short, Eve really was extraordinary. She was a natural-born leader, compassionate and so enthusiastic and interested in everyone around her. And now, with her death, she left a grievous hole in the hearts of countless people. The community had no idea what to make of this situation because, popularity aside, a student had suddenly died in a remote woodland just off campus. And although most murder cases tend to be a one-off scenario, the lack of evidence left no hint if this would happen again. Now, Eve's death appeared to be random. She was last seen by her housemates around 1:30 that morning, where she stayed home to study as they all went out for drinks. But what happened between that time and 5 a.m. at this stage was anyone's guess. The following morning, and after an anonymous tip, the police found her car not too far away from the crime scene. And of course, they went to go take a look.
Now to Chapel Hill, where a police tip line has been ringing all day. Investigators are working every lead in the search for Eve Carson's killer. They're going through every inch of her SUV. It's believed the killer shot her in a neighborhood near campus, then took off in her truck. Our team coverage begins with Dan Bowens outside police headquarters. Dan.
Pam, Chapel Hill police do
Oare,
not
ăsta e
have
șmecher.
any suspects in
Focus,
this
load
case, and they are
shells.
calling the murder of Eve
Yeah,
Carson
load shells is
a
good, I
random
think.
act of violence. They've spent much of the
local
last
shells.
48 hours trying to obtain her phone records, her bank records, and looking through her SUV for any sign of evidence that could help them solve this case.
Evidence inside Eve Carson's SUV could provide important information about her murder. Chapel Hill police spent much of Friday reviewing the contents inside. WRAL has learned detectives are investigating 2 crimes in the UNC student body president's death: the theft of Carson's SUV and the murder. Police believe the killer was in Carson's Toyota at some point. Carson lived just a block off the main business district of Franklin Street on Friendly Lane. Police found her body Wednesday morning a little more than a mile from her home in a residential part of town at Hillcrest Road. Her SUV was found at the intersection of North Street and Hillsborough. Police believe Carson was shot with a handgun several times at around 5:30 Wednesday morning, including one shot to her right temple. She was last seen alive by her roommates at around 1:30 that morning. Detectives are still trying to piece together what happened in between.
And Chapel Hill police also announced today that there is a $25,000 reward for anyone who could help them solve this crime. Pam?
Dan Bowens live in Chapel Hill. Thank you.
The blue 2005 Toyota Highlander, still sporting Georgia plates, was found near the intersection of North and Hillsborough Street, which from that location was a 30-minute walk from where her body was found. The car wasn't too far from her home either, which of course was where she'd disappeared from. 202 Friendly Lane was only a stone's throw away from the vehicle, so in that regard, officers couldn't be sure whether she'd left it there by herself before the incident, or closer to the time of the gunshots being heard. Forensic analysts were eventually able to confirm that the last activity on Eve's computer was at 3:37 a.m, more than 2 hours after her roommates left the property. This was good information to have, as it could be used by the authorities to refine the time frame in which she may have been kidnapped. And at long last, a clue to her killer, or killers, and a potential motive finally came in. After gaining access to her financial accounts, investigators were able to deduce that at 3:55 a.m. on the night she disappeared, which was only 21 minutes since her computer's last activity, several attempts were made to withdraw cash from her bank account. The attempts were made at an ATM at the University Mall in Chapel Hill, which was north of the university and where Eve's body was discovered. The daily maximum of $700 was pulled out of the account, with the next 5 attempts remaining unsuccessful. And this is where investigators got their first big breakthrough. With this particular ATM being a drive-through machine, the building was equipped with surveillance cameras. And during the time her card was being used to withdraw cash, the camera had taken several images of the card's user. Although the footage is grainy, a young man wearing a hoodie and a black cap can be seen. And in one of these still images, it appears that a second person can be seen in one of the car's rear passenger seats. Now, Eve was still alive at the time these photos were being taken, so could it possibly have been her? Or was there another person accompanying the hooded figure? Analysts were eventually able to enhance this photo to a higher resolution and with colour. However, the figure or figures in the back of the car were still not discernible. At 4:44 a.m. on the same morning, another attempt was made to withdraw funds from her bank account. However, no surveillance footage captured the person responsible for the withdrawal. And sadly, just 24 minutes later, Eve Carson was shot 5 times. But these wouldn't be the only attempts made over the following days. Just 7 hours later, at 12:39 p.m, her card was used twice more at a mini-mart along Moorhead Avenue in Durham.
Kill her and then use her card. Oh my god, what a
12:16 a.m,
retard.
And yet again at a 5th location the day after. Whoever was trying to steal money out of her account was becoming very brazen and, quite frankly, sloppy in their work. And this final risk held dire consequences for them, because lo and behold, this 5th and final place had a camera. At 12:54 a.m. on the morning of March 7th, a surveillance camera captured this person walking into the Carolina Food Mart on Alston Avenue. They walked up to the store's ATM machine, used Eve's card, and was ultimately declined. But what was interesting to officers is that while this was a male figure, it clearly was not the same guy seen in the previous surveillance footage, meaning they either had 2 suspects in this case, or 1 red herring. While officers got to work on identifying and locating their suspects, the towns of Chapel Hill and Athens united in grief for Eve Carson. And on March 9th, 2008, she was laid to rest. Hundreds attended her funeral, and back in Carolina, thousands of people gave her a minute of silence out of respect.
There it is.
Honestly, this young woman was loved beyond all measure. Despite several surveillance images and their best efforts, progress in this case was initially slow. However, on March the 12th, 7 days after her death, police finally had a lead. Following an anonymous tip, an uncanny resemblance to the surveillance photo, police focused their sights on a man named Demario was problematic to say the least. Aged 21 at the time, he already had 2 prior convictions, had committed several further crimes while on parole, and was even said to be in court 2 days before he was murdered. Demario's criminal history, dating back to 2004, includes convictions of assault, robbery, trespassing, and possession of marijuana with intent to sell. He was caught breaking into a home in 2005, and again in 2006 with probation. To add to this, he had also been caught on a gun law violation, but due to a courtroom mix-up, his hearing was rescheduled for the first 2 days of April. His criminal profile seemed to have pushed him into things too. It was hard to argue that
Picat cu noi nivelul, prost.
Carolina Food Mart and to add to this, Demario didn't report from the crime scene, residing in Rosedale Avenue, which was just northeast of town. And after learning that he was friends with another man whose lives had been lovers, detectives noticed that he had extraordinary like the suspect from the back surveillance footage. Both Lawrence and Demario were high school dropouts from and simply wrote attendance at the school in connection to one another in cells. And so, on the morning of March 12, 2008, police officers decided to take Demario on this visit.
Oh, fucking way. Ah, pot să mă bat eu aici, în pula mea, să dă aoie, frate. How the fuck did we get there?
Chapel Hill and Durham police are
Da, mă, trebuia să sar
looking
până
for
este
Warren.
fall
He is
damage,
considered
prost.
armed and dangerous. Warrants also charge him with Carson's murder. This, as of late this afternoon, a standoff unfolded at the home owned by someone with the same last name. Special enforcement teams rolled in and blasted down doors and windows. No word yet whether Lovett was inside.
We began our team coverage right now
Hai de
live
aici,
in
mă.
Chapel Hill, where Amanda Lamb has spent the day following the latest developments. Amanda.
Pam, as you said, big developments.
Avea ce să dau doar de acolo.
Surveillance video pictures allow police to arrest one suspect and identify another. Police have a name to work with this fate of the suspect in this convenience store surveillance video. They say this man who tried to use Eve Carson's ATM card is 21-year-old Demario Atwater. A tip from that picture led them to arrest Atwater and Durham on first-degree murder charges.
Approximately 5 a.m. Demario made Atwater, 21 years old, taken into police custody after he was observed exiting the residence.
Warren also said they are still looking for another suspect. This man, the driver in what was believed to be Carson's SUV, had a bank ATM machine in this surveillance picture. 17-year-old Lawrence Lovett.
Wow.
Lawrence Alpha Lovett Sr. should be considered armed and dangerous. We you to encourage citizens not to approach it.
Just 1 week after Carson was found shot to death in a neighborhood near UNC's campus, Chapel Hill Mayor Kevin Foy thanked the police for their hard work, but reminded everyone that a cloud of grief still lingers here.
As encouraging as the developments today are, we are still a community in grief. We have come together during this difficult time to comfort each other and to help heal our community. But we also still must offer comfort to a family in mourning.
Now, Lawrence was eventually arrested and charged with murder alongside his partner in crime. Aged 17, he was still legally just a child, but 17 previous
Yeah, get his ass.
already on probation for larceny and breaking and entering charges. Lawrence also lived in Durham. And let's be real, with the surveillance images at hand, both he and Demario were now in a very challenging position. By the end of March 2008, an Orange County jury indicted both Demario and Lawrence on first-degree murder charges. By July, those charges had extended to first-degree kidnapping, first-degree robbery,
Oh, easy there, big fella.
possession of a firearm by a felon, and felon's possession of stolen goods. And despite this already list of crimes, in addition to the charges, Lawrence was also charged with murder of a contractor who was a 29-year-old engineer who detected in Kuwait. Now, I won't go into much detail about the Lawrence would
Tot un alt.
but Abhishek left
Yes.
University. But on the night of January 18, 2008, which was only a few weeks before Eve's death, he found some time to pass. After his house was broken into, Abhishek was driven to an ATM machine, forced to drain his savings account, and then was driven to home. And then tragically after this, the burglar then shot him in the face. Considering all the evidence and this surrounding, Lawrence was tried for Abhishek's murder, but very little physical evidence was able to tie the two together, and eventually he was arrested. And to this day, Abhishek Carson's murder is still unsolved.
Ai prostit.
Moving back to Carson's case, prosecutors were gearing up to try both Demario and Lawrence for the murder, and of course they would be tried separately. As an adult, Demario was facing the death penalty. However, for Lawrence, because he was 17 at the time, would not face the same case. But with multiple crime scenes that became so complex, it would take both prosecutors and defense many years to gather their evidence for the trial. And what they would eventually unearth over the course of 2 years was a very full, callous and tragic story, which was built around brilliant and tragically and destruction. It all started in the early morning hours of March 5th, Eve had made the decision to stay home and revise, leaving her alone at home while her housemates went out for a few drinks at around 1:30 a.m. At around 3:30 that morning, and around the corner of the street, another student was on the phone. That was when she noticed two men, Lawrence and Demario, staring at her. Concerned for her safety, she drove away, and peering through her rearview mirror as she left, she noticed a moving towards her, which of course was her student. Cell phone data confirmed that Lawrence's phone made several connections to his contact. It turns out that the two of them were looking out for him to take. Out on bond, they were both very well rich, and figured that they'd steal the money they needed.
Scrotum cleansing.
And neither had she with her. They had never met her before in their lives, and had no former tip or clue of her existence. But when they saw her staying alone at home, they decided that she was vulnerable to horrific environment, and that she was going to be killed. Within minutes, they had broken into her home, her and we know Eve's activity at this happened around 3:37. Lawrence and Demario then kidnapped her, putting her in the back seat of her SUV as they went to withdraw money from multiple ATMs. This happened around the drive where these at 4:44 a.m. the second ATM was tried with more continuity, but since they were already withdrawn, the next no more could be taken. After several attempts, they then ordered them to work with them who were with and that is when they reached the intersection with the pressed circle and orchestra. When Eve realized that they were going to kill her, she responded by asking them to fight with her, but instead the two men opened fire. She took 4 shots from 2 handguns, before finally being shot with a sawed-off shotgun. Lawrence and Demario then fled the scene, leaving her body to be found by officers later that morning. They had brutally claimed the life of a bright, beautiful young woman, all in the name of the receive several $100s each. Lawrence later confirmed that $1,400 had been taken from her account, which was the maximum that had been drawn in a 48-hour time frame. Once authorities asked Mario, he did confess that he was the one in the surveillance footage, and would later tell officers that Lawrence was his accomplice. Beginning with Mario, he avoided a full trial by pleading guilty to all federal charges put against him, and didn't apologize to his parents in court. As a result, on September 23rd, 2010, he was given a life sentence with an additional 30 years behind bars. And since he pleaded guilty himself, he would avoid the death penalty. Lawrence
departe merg.
he pleaded not guilty to state charges of first-degree murder, first-degree kidnapping, first-degree robbery, felonious arson, and felonious possession of weapons. For this decision, he was asked to face the judge and jury in the trial, which began in December 2011. But after this 2-week trial, Lawrence was found guilty of all charges, and was therefore sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. There were complications to this case. On February 5th, 2013, the North Carolina Court of Appeals repeated Lawrence's sentence and not a long sentence. They cited that a mandatory sentence to life in prison without parole, celebrating that time of crime is cruel and unusual punishment. And so, on May 3rd, 2011, the second trial was held. During this time, Lawrence said, "You know, people make mistakes. Nobody is perfect. I'm not the monster that y'all made me out to be. I know this has been a traumatic ordeal for everybody involved. For that, I send my condolences to everybody who's been affected by it. If it means anything to anybody, it means something to me." After very careful deliberation and taking Lawrence's powerful statement to heart, the judge once again found him guilty on all charges and sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In my opinion, the only right outcome, given the nature of his foul actions. Since being thrown behind bars, Lawrence has made 7 further infractions. Safe to say, he's not done himself any favours. Not that it matters anyway, he will never be a free man again. Now, usually I'd argue that someone so young has the chance to learn from their mistakes. Fully grown adults could learn this from as when they were 17. But Lawrence seems to be
all this fucking running for one hit. Oh my god.
With no chance of rehabilitation. With the murder of Abhijit aside, there does seem to be several other strange side notes to this case. Beginning with Demario, but several months after his arrest, his stepbrother Shelton was shot dead. While attending a house party in the late hours of 8th of November 2008, he and another friend were shot in the back while leaving the front door. Shelton was a good kid, and he was not following the same troubled path his older brother was taking, and understandably,
what's going on?
He was devastated.
Size.
In the space of 1 year, she had
Belly
lost
button.
2
I can go on with that.
Moving back to Eve,
Mâine vine Zani. Zani, Gunning, tomorrow.
Both of her killers were on probation, and neither was being adequately monitored during this time frame. And furthermore, probation officers failed to revoke Damario's probation after learning he'd violated their agreed rules.
Eu nu mă duc niciunde mai, eu vineri la lucru, mă duc frumos, îmi văd de treaba mea.
An arrest warrant was served in his name, where he was subsequently jailed. But after posting a $10,000 bond, Demario was freed once again, pending a court hearing on March the 3rd. As said before, this court hearing was postponed by 4 weeks following a courtroom mix-up. But that new date would never arrive, as 2 days later, Eve Carson was murdered.
No.
It is alleged that Demario was hell-bent on recovering the $10,000 he'd lost to his bond, and this was the main reason and motivation to robbing Eve. Now, it takes a special kind of stupid to try and fix a crime with another crime. We really are talking about morons here, but I guess that's why so many of these stories exist, because at the end of the day, people are just people. And the worst of us are just idiots. Unfortunately, this case could have been avoided had it not been for the sloppy work of probation officers. And the consequence to all of this is the life
oh my
of Eve
fucking
Carson.
god.
Eve was, and still is, I should say, an extraordinary woman. Those who knew her described her as someone who glowed with joy, was extremely compassionate, and genuinely cared for others. She was enthusiastic and hardworking, and expressed her selflessness through countless hours of charity work. Not just at home, but abroad during her summer holidays too. Eve actively made connections with everyone around her, and through the dozens of public videos of her online, it is abundantly clear that she put others before herself. And even in her final minutes, she made the best out of her situation by asking Lawrence and Demario to pray with her. To honor her life, the University of North Carolina established the Eve Carson Scholarship, which is student-run and awarded annually to 2 juniors at the University of North Carolina. It's intended to allow students to give more back to UNC by removing some of the financial burden inflicted through tuition fees. I am sure this is intentional, as the scholarship was Eve's idea in the first place. In the month leading up to her death, and while student president, she'd been fighting for such an idea. Eve posthumously received the Chancellor's Award for the most outstanding woman in her senior class, and was also granted the Distinguished Young Alumnus Award. Her funeral brought hundreds together, and her service in Chapel Hill was reportedly attended by up to 10,000 people. And still, to this day, many remember her face and name around campus. It's hard to tell where Eve would be now if her life hadn't been cruelly cut so short. She was interested in science policy and planned to pursue further higher education after graduating from UNC. She also accepted a job at McKinsey & Company as a management consultant. As you can see, the young woman was clearly destined for a great career. As we all know, and as this story has taught us, we can't ultimately control what happens to us in life. However, there are a variety of things we can do to better our situation. And as for Eve, she always made the best out of hers. You know, one of the things I came to realize from this case is that Eve was so very fucking loved. And I know that swearing can be inappropriate, but it's because I really, really mean it. One of the many ways I gather info for a case is through online obituaries, and never have I ever seen so many comments left behind for a victim. For Eve, it was almost 1,000. The 15-year anniversary of her death comes just a few days after posting this video, and even still, she received several comments below. And even after speaking to several people living in the local area, they've confirmed that Eve is still well known around the campus. Sadly, Eve's life is a story that will forever remain unwritten. A story that was destined for great success and positivity, but ultimately was lost for several $100s. I'm going to wrap this all up here, folks. I think I've pretty much nailed the story, but of course I could have gone on much longer about his success and achievements. My question for you is, what do you think about this case? Do you think that if the probation officer spent more time on Demario and Lawrence, could this have all avoided Eve's death? And another question, but many people still argue that Abhijit was murdered by Lawrence. So, do you think he did this? Anyway, folks, that is all from me today, and thank you so much for watching another video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, I really do appreciate it, and it really does help me out. I'm back again very soon for another video, likely after this whole COVID span is gone.
He's not dead already,
is he? Lives though, remember to look after yourself, look after each other, and of course, stay safe. Thank you, and goodbye. Whether you're tight on time or simply want to treat yourself, everyone loves you. But how would you react after learning that your favorite local restaurant had a body opening? For many residents across Wisconsin and Ohio, this terrific prospect came disturbing.
One fucking second.
This would only happen if the local community poured all their efforts into finding the victim. And the recorded event which followed reveals the callous actions of 2 heartless soldiers. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, folks. My name is Adrian, and welcome back to Greatsword. Today we're looking at the disturbing case of Ashley Zhao. As you will likely also see in the next few videos, I have a lot of things to go through in this one, so please watch carefully and tell me what you think about these parents at the end. By the way, I post true crime and strange cases weekly, so if that does sound like the kind of thing, please consider subscribing to the channel, it really does help me out. And another small side note, but over the next 2 weeks, I'll be giving away 2 brand new copy numbers. So hang out to the end of the video to see how you could win. And now, with that said, please grab yourself a coffee, pull up a seat, and get ready for the deep dive. This is the case of Ashley Zhao.
Aici vreau. Long story, not that long.
Welcome back to the Buckeye State, folks. As we tell you, history runs deeper than the world. Originally inhabited by nomadic peoples as early as 13,000 BC, the land was also home to the Europeans, Algonquin and Spaniards. In more recent times, the state has home to more than 23,000 Irish citizens, rendering the state as a whole the
proastă.
second largest Amish population after Pennsylvania. Reportedly, the highest natural roots of business level, and its mechanical exploration is perhaps an understatement, but this region offers several tales of views that are absolutely stunning. Dotted throughout the forests and wildlife areas, you'll find the state's iconic cities, including Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. And let's not forget about according to the economy of Ohio is considered the 25th largest global economy in the world, behind that of Saudi Arabia and ahead of Argentina. And this is thanks to a $620 billion GDP in 2021 alone. As you can likely guess, this economy is driven by lucrative industries such as bioscience, education, next-generation energy, aerospace, and much more. 12 million people all in various fields and through various walks of life. And found in Jackson Township, Stark County, lived the young family of four, the Zhaos. Lang Zhao and Ming Chen were a Chinese couple in the quiet town of Jackson Township. The couple were trying to make an honest living for themselves, with aspirations of settling into the middle of the country of America. Although Lang Zhao was a naturalized citizen of the US, with his visa having been approved many years prior, things were not so clear for Ming Chen. While she was still a teenager, she had illegally moved from China to the US and sought for and although she had no real right to live there, she felt she would experience a better living standard. Eventually, in the year 2009, Ming applied for asylum in the United States because apparently she had been persecuted by the Chinese government for following Falun Gong. Now, this is not Falun Gong is a legislation practice that has been outlawed by the Chinese government. Although it may look like normal meditation, it is technically classed as a spiritual discipline, which takes people standing on the line after calling it an evil cult. Falun Gong means the law of the practice in Chinese, and is a set of meditation exercises and texts that preach the virtues of truth, kindness, and spiritual quality. Falun Gong vows its heart to salvation. Adherents would try to gain enlightenment by reading the works of the Buddha, who was said to be able to read and heal. The faith became so popular that, by the late 1990s, millions of Chinese citizens from various backgrounds had taken it up, which, of course, is something that the government wasn't exactly thrilled about. Anyway, it's not completely clear why Ming sought asylum over this. I mean, perhaps it was a ruse to claim residency in America, or maybe she genuinely did fear the consequences of remaining in her home country. After being in a relationship with Lang Zhao for a while, the couple eventually married, and a couple of years later, they brought two daughters into the world, Jojo, and a year afterwards, her younger sister, Ashley. Taking the central role in this case today, Ashley was born on December 30th, 2011, and as of January 2017, she was 5 years old. She had black shoulder-length hair and had a delightfully cute button nose. However, unfortunately, it became obvious that her birth was too much strain for her parents to handle. At the time, Liang and Ming were the owners of an Asian The work was very demanding, and keeping the business afloat appeared to be extremely challenging. Now, the menu included all the good food typically found in any decent Chinese restaurant. Things like chicken chow mein, kung po chicken, and boneless spare ribs. And now, all of a sudden, I'm hungry. The reviews were decent back in the day too. Their dishes were considered to be fresh, the delivery time seemed to be fast, and the workers were often complimented for being very pleasant to their customers. Locals had even become casual friends with the pair too. They often shared jokes and conversations while waiting for their food, and even spoke to their daughters.
Yes.
Honestly, it is such a waste of potential that all of this would change. Behind closed doors, the Zhao family were struggling. Their business was a full-time job, and they refused to make time for their daughters. This led to Ashley moving in with her grandparents in New York, allowing Liang and Ming to focus on work and their older daughter, Jojo. She would eventually move back in with her parents in October 2015, though apparently she'd learned a few bad habits along the way, and wouldn't listen to her mother and father. Ming was overwhelmed with work and was becoming increasingly frustrated with her younger daughter. And to add to this were concerning reports that her husband was becoming abusive. However, comparing that to what was about to happen was only the tip of the iceberg. Because on January the 9th, 2017, the Zhao family would be ripped apart for forever.
Straight to business, direct
It
finish.
was on this day that Liang phoned 911 with some very concerning news. He claimed that while he and his wife were busily working, Ashley had awoken from a nap and walked out the restaurant's back door, only to disappear and never return.
Jackson Township Police.
Thunder,
Yes, I need some help.
Focus
where you at?
to load shelter.
4924 Portage Street.
Hey, what's going on?
I can't find my daughter.
Okay, how old is she?
5.
Focus, nu
Just turned 5.
Okay, and
Trebuie
your
mor
name?
să schimb.
Thanks, yeah.
When's the last time you seen her?
This afternoon, probably.
Around what time?
3, maybe 4.
Rapid more level.
3 and 4, 5 hours?
You saw her at 5?
What was she wearing?
She's wearing a purple winter coat. I don't know what those things are called, but they're not jeans. They're like,
Like leggings?
yeah.
Okay, and you haven't seen her in 5 hours?
About, yeah. I mean, she was there sleeping. I mean, you know.
Where was she sleeping at? In the restaurant?
Yeah. She was sleeping there, and I picked up my older daughter from school. We all saw her sleeping there. So, and you know, we went to work, and you know, we let her sleep. We got busy, and then after it got busy, you know, we started cleaning up, and then you know, we opened the door, and she's not here.
Okay, so what's your name?
Liang Zhao.
Okay, do you have any videos or anything in there where you can see a video to see if she was laying there?
No. We don't have any security camera in there. It's just in the restaurant. We've been here for 6 years. We never had security cameras here. We saw her, like all of us, like my wife, myself, and my older daughter.
Okay, and so was there any suspicious people that came in at all? Do you think she could have woke up and ran out somewhere?
I have no idea. I mean, she was sleeping in the back.
None of your employees had seen her?
There's only 2 of us, just myself and my wife. There's nobody else in the restaurant. But when we came back, she's here. Like, my wife is here, the restaurant's open. The restaurant's always open.
When you left, you said you, your wife, and your daughter left to go pick up your daughter from school?
No, I didn't say that. I said, my wife is here all the time.
Okay, and your wife hasn't seen her either since around 4 or 5 o'clock?
When I met with myself, okay? When I went to pick up my daughter, when we came back,
Știu cum dau ăla să scoată
and my
afară
daughter,
deodată.
not my wife. My wife was here the whole time.
That's right. What's your daughter's name?
Ashley.
Okay. All right, my upstairs outside if you want to go and meet my officer at the door, okay?
Killeriți copila.
Yeah, he's already outside.
In the front or the back?
He should be in the front.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Calling in at 9 p.m., Liang claimed that he had last seen her around 5 p.m. after picking up her older sister from school. All 3 of them, including Jojo, saw her that evening, but after the dinnertime rush, she was nowhere to be found. Ashley's disappearance triggered a sense of urgency throughout the local community. One of their own had gone missing, notably such a young child, and this would spark a statewide search for her. Police combed the nearby area looking for her. Locals peered through the lakes and parks, and nearby woodlands were scoured. But sadly, much to the dismay of everyone, Ohio's wintry wilderness didn't reveal anything to them.
Breaking news, a community shaken as police in Jackson Township search for this little girl, 5-year-old Ashley Zhao. The child last seen at about 5 o'clock last night at her family's Chinese restaurant.
So it's safe to say this massive search is being taken very seriously today. Several agencies searching for little Ashley Zhao.
Her picture on nearly every window. That little face on everyone's mind. People who know her told me Ashley Zhao is not your typical 5-year-old.
A lot of 5-year-olds are shy.
Calling her very social for such a little girl.
She was just very friendly. She's very vocal. She's not afraid to talk to you.
Douglas Panzarello works across the street. He goes to Ang's Chinese cuisine all the time.
When I leave work today, I am going to drive around the back. I'm going to do my own little search.
According to police, Zhao was last seen around 5 last night when she went to take a nap in the back room of her family's restaurant. When her mother went to check on her around 9, Ashley was gone. She was wearing a purple coat and gray leggings. Extended families searched the lot behind the restaurant today. They're not the only ones looking. Jackson Township Police continue to investigate, joined by nearby police and sheriff's departments. Many meeting nearby to search the area.
In the meantime, investigating officers turned their heads towards the restaurant. After all, if Ashley had been abducted, then perhaps some clues would be left behind in her absence. Officers could think of multiple areas of interest. This included the back door Ashley had slipped out of, the area immediately surrounding the back door, and any surveillance cameras that may have captured her or her abductor leaving. However, upon searching the area, they would horrifyingly find something much worse. As expected with all restaurants, the family had a sizable fridge and freezer in the kitchen. Able to accommodate what was expected, this one was big enough to walk in, and peering at the side of this fridge freezer, investigators noticed a small opening in the restaurant door. A dark voice stared back at the officer. Although it was fully closed off, they decided to keep the appliances to the side and have a look at what may be within. Their pulses began to quicken. Considering it was large enough for a child to fit into, they may have been onto something. And sadly, they were correct. Tucked into the wall, they found a soft container, and after opening the lid, they were instantly met with the greatest fear. Inside lay the lifeless body of Ashley Zhao. The young child had never disappeared from the restaurant. The heartbreaking reality was that she had remained here with her parents all this time. As you can likely guess, this was the worst case scenario that authorities could have envisioned, and it begged many more questions. Since the two had been requested to stay away from the restaurant while the search was being conducted, both Liang and Ming had no idea that Ashley's body had been found. However, all of this would change very quickly, and only 40 minutes later, both of them had been arrested, where interrogations would begin. Now, I don't need to tell you this, but there is something very interesting about watching criminals break under pressure, and these two were no different. First up was Liang. She was interviewed for almost an entire hour. During this time, a lot of lies slowly unraveled, until eventually the man finally
What happened yesterday morning? Okay, yesterday morning, I took her to school. I came back. When I came back, my wife was very angry at Ashley because she peed on her diaper. But she's 5 years old. She's not highly trained ever. And I was like out there. So, I'm 5 years old and I'm still fine. And I'm like, on the carpet, with ice. And initially she was breathing. She was breathing again. And she wanted to do it. What if I'm over there? I can't say my wife was actually stood on the carpet. I said, was she walking? No, she wasn't walking. She was breathing, but she was lying down because she was gasping. Like it was. I can't really remember calling that what, but the lack of it. And then I went over to hold her. Just to feel that. And I checked her heart. It's not beating. So I started panicking and I tried to just feel out her, try to breathe. And that's when we realized she's gone.
Liang was very direct and unemotional during his interrogation, and very soon came clean about what exactly happened to Ashley. He claimed that, while still at home, Ming Ming had become angry at Ashley for her lack of potty training. This resulted in her snapping at Ashley in a fit of rage, striking the child with a punch to the face. Ashley's head struck the floor, where she was still breathing but had been rendered unconscious. Her father, Liang, had witnessed the entire thing, but rather than immediately dial 911 for medical assistance, he tried to do it himself. After trying to bring her around, Ashley would tragically pass away several minutes later, and in a mortifying wake of her death, Liang and Ming Ming were what they never to do next.
About it. came over what. But, you know, we should bring her to the restaurant so Jojo can see her. So Jojo, when you guys ask her, you know, when I was thinking maybe that wasn't a good idea, but I wasn't thinking clearly at the time. So, you know, bring her to the restaurant so Jojo can see her so that when we call, Jojo can say, oh, she was here at the restaurant and she left the back door at the restaurant instead of, you know, at the house. She accidentally got killed. So,
Where were you gonna put her? Or were you gonna put her into the restaurant so Jojo can see her?
You know, at the room that she was normally in, she sleeps in there. So, Jojo would see that she's sleeping there and can verify it. And, you know, she's sick, so, and even if you ask her to take a polygraph, ask a 6-year-old to take a polygraph, but a 6-year-old wouldn't lie like that. And so we didn't want Jojo to lie, so we want Jojo to see Ashley there.
Worried about losing everything they had worked for, the two decided not to inform the authorities, and instead they elected to let the death of an abduction accident. Leanne told investigators that they put her body in the car, drove her body to the restaurant, and then placed her in her bed so her sister could think she was sleeping. They kept her in this bed upstairs for several hours. They lied to her sister and reported about her sister being asleep, when the reality was far from this. All of this was very careful. It was to make the last remaining daughter an alibi, to be a witness that could verify that Ashley was still alive in the evening, and therefore validate the credibility of her disappearance.
The plan was for Jojo to verify that she's there, and then I would hide her on top of the walk-in freezer. And then when we call the police at night, Jojo could verify that she was there. And then Jojo, I'm a liar, but she's sick. So when you lean her towards something, that's where she goes. And she's not lying. She doesn't lie to people, but she is sick. When you point her at the direction, that's where she's gonna go. And then I moved her to the walk-in freezer. Put her in that plastic container so that she wouldn't stink.
What kind of container?
That was plastic, like, those plastic containers for like restaurants. And that's what we're gonna call the police. We will look at that, you know, the police will come here, we'll inspect it. We didn't know the procedure exactly what's going on. We didn't know that I was going to come down here with a polygraph. We asked so much questions, so there's going to be so many people involved. We knew that there was going to be 100 people searching for the more, you know. I'm so sorry.
During questioning, Leanne presented Ashley's body in a self-contained movie room freezer, where they stored the restaurant stock and carried on about their life and death. Horrifyingly, the couple carried on with food and serving customers, while their daughter's lifeless corpse was right next to them. And when asked what he planned to do with the body next, Leanne answered, burn it, bury it, or throw it in the ocean.
What were the plans to do after maybe we quit looking for her? What were you gonna do?
We don't really know. There was 3 things, like burn it, bury it, or throw it in the ocean. Those are the only 3 things that we can think of. And we know that. I mean, that's how we want it. Reasons. You know, other than the fact that there's so many reasons why I'm very important. But one of the reasons is grab attention, and I know that, you know, what I'm telling you, know it. And I think I'm going to be looking over my shoulder for, I don't even know. You know, there's a dead body there. Honestly, there's not really sure what to do after that.
Throughout his interrogation, it remained clear that he lacked any compassion over the death of his own daughter. He often referred to her and spent most of his time expressing fear of missing thoughts instead of expressing any I'm going to let this interrogation tape run for a while longer, leading into some of the key moments that I believe are
That was great. My wife was trying to say, this will get resolved. I'm going to get together. My wife, she's not a bad person. She's not definitely, I married her. Well, I wouldn't marry her if she was kidding. My wife is a good person. I know it's very hard to, think Ashley, but look at JoJo. Look at JoJo. She's a good person. We knew that something was just what happened actually with Ashley was after all. So they said, well, I don't know. We'll split her like this again. I was just hoping that, we wouldn't come to this before we sent her away. Why didn't you raise Ashley? Oh, I was running a restaurant. Couldn't really take care of everything, so I naturally left my mom. When did you start with Mike and Ashley? About a little bit after a month after she died. The beginning was not that bad. And the thing with Ashley was that she still doesn't know the bathroom. So that was my wife's thought that we have to do that. She's still not fine. Getting back to the Ashley, look, serve me while your daughter was and what are you?
moving on to Ming's interrogation. The footage of which was available is not really present to Jenna. Unfortunately, Ming's cold and distracted demeanor painted a picture of an emotionless mother. Now, it is important to highlight that people respond to shock in various and different ways, and Ming's cold-hearted attitude may be a direct consequence of the internal grief she is experiencing. However, I would argue that, just as likely in this case, she is simply a stone-cold monster. She began her interview by explaining the reasons why she hit her daughter, as if they were some sort of sick means to justify what she was doing. To add to this, she further tried to explain that she was a victim to her own parents.
I don't have green heart. It wasn't my fault. That's okay. Because I love my husband. I don't care about that. And we've done the passport as we go to China. And I told my husband, say when Ashley come back, we bring Ashley back here. Because
Enough crime investigations. Oh wow, got Ok, nu e una, e alta, fost, da. Extraordinar. Cum dau în el, cum face rahatul ăla? Pula mea nu dai jos, mă. Cum de nu joc jos? Băga mea și pula în morții tăi, hai. Extraordinar, boss. Da, ia, fută-te Dumnezeu, antidotul, băga mea și pula în măta de proastă. Extraordinar, frate. Nu pot să lovesc cu undul ăla nici dacă îl fute Dumnezeu și lipesc ținta pe el direct. Futu-i rasa în gură să-i fut. Hai, morții mătii de curvă. Ga mea și pula în gâtul tău. Ceea ce n-ar fi rău. După o zi de vânat monștri, o să mă mai ocup de unul singur. Trebuie să dau niște minereuri dacă plecăm aici. Nova cristal, puta-l dracu. Hai, Nianco. Urmă pișați ăștia. Nu, ți-am spus, pe mine nu mă interesează, dacă nu vine la mine să ia, nu mă interesează detalii, eu nu mai vorbesc. Dacă vrea bine, dacă nu, pa. Îi vând eu, dacă nu, vreau detalii, la. Hai aici, gram. Că ești low content de... Gem? Da, gem. Tu ce vrei? Pleacă de aici. They want to mate. Asta au făcut cu voi. Face ceasul, nu? Nice, nice weapon. mai unul și... Only butter. So she gets big tits, you know? Da. Să mor și broscoiul ăla, că îmi trebuie piese. Yeah, this guy. Need parts. Come here and die. Așa a făcut și Hitler, numai că nu i-a trebuit parți. A fost greu să scape de asta. Dar a trebuit să îi omoare pe toți ca să aibă el succes, că era dement. Demented fuck. Don't sleep on me now. Schimbă-mi pula mea, de ce te aud pe ăla? Nu trage dacă nu dă în el. Paralyzed. Samurai finish. Să vedem pe asta. Da, select under. Lost one. Oh. That's good. Am lovit. Fuck. Wow, to s nami na molotu. extraordinar. Dau combo la final, bro. A, încă mai sari, băgați-ai pula. Give me your guts. Da, I really like Charles Blade. Bine, trebuie să lovești, că altfel nu face combo. Oh, sorry, Nyanko. Sorry. Da. Da, mă, pe mine, asta îi plac scopsele. Nu râde. Deci, mâine, tomorrow Zani. Yes. We all gonna goon hard on that one. But